Hello, and welcome to the first recording of the Federal Transit Administration FTA's Summary Grants Management Series. I am Trina Trotman with the Office of Program Management. It is a pleasure to share information with you to better understand federal financial assistance at FTA. I hope that you gain insight during this session that will set the stage for an appreciation of general grants management information and to know where to search for information on administering federal awards. To ensure we are all on the same page, we want to remind everyone that this presentation does not have the force and effect of law and is not intended to bind the public in any way. It is educational and informational in nature, seeking to explain some of our existing requirements under laws, requirements, and policies. The route ahead is our agenda. As this is a general overview pre-recorded session, feel free to take notes and follow up with reviewing any of the other sessions. We plan to take a deeper dive in other sessions within this series or during the next training series on Circular 5010 1F, Award Management Requirements. And now I would like to introduce a brief video providing a snapshot of FTA's circular release efforts.
Hello, my name is Bruce Robinson, FTA's Associate Administrator for Program Management. On behalf of the team here at the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, I'm delighted to provide a brief introduction to the upcoming video training. FTA turned 60 years old this year, and one of our most exciting projects this year was updating several of FTA's major program circulars, as well as FTA's Award Management Requirement Circular, which is needed for all awards FTA administers. Over the last 2 years, staff worked tirelessly to update these circulars, working with headquarters and regional offices, as well as reaching out for public comment to update these documents. 4 circulars are Circular 5010, the Award Management Requirements Circular, Circular 9050, the Urbanized Area Formula Grant Program Guidance. This circular replaces, consolidates, and updates guidance for the Urbanized Area Formula Grant Program, the State of Good Repair Grant Program, and the Urbanized Area Formula component of the Grants of Buses and Bus Facilities Program. In addition, Circular 9040, the Rural Area Formula Grant Program Guidance, consolidates and updates guidance for the Buses and Bus Facilities Program that is rural, and the Formula Grants for Rural Area Program. Finally, Circular 97 is the Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program Guidance. As part of the updated circular release, FTA developed a video series for each circular to relay key information and highlight changes. Additionally, the team developed a number of materials to help work with grantees and help set the stage for understanding federal financial assistance requirements surrounding administering federal fund awards. This circular and training series is specifically designed to assist FTA's efforts to improving customer service and streamlining our processes, as well as reflecting and incorporating provisions from the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, or more commonly the FAST Act, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, as well as changes to the Uniform Administrative Requirements, Cost Principles, and Audit Requirements for Federal Awards, more commonly referred to as 2 CFR 200 or the Uniform Guidance, as well as incorporating changes to FTA's policies and procedures. We hope you find these videos informative. FTA has created a general email address for questions related to this update, FTA Circular Update 2024 at dot.gov, to assist in addressing questions regarding this release. For questions about information in the circulars, please reach out to your FTA regional contacts. But for now, please enjoy the show. Thank you.
Since we are at the beginning of the post-circular publication, all of these videos will be released accordingly. Feel free to pop in and out of the trainings to learn about topics that are most important to you and to share with others. Keep an eye out on Fridays for the next FTA series release through mid-November 2024. While these series might not be as exciting as Netflix, we hope that you will be engaged. Our first series discusses general grants management, grant systems, and government-wide and FTA requirements. This series was developed to create a baseline understanding of the financial assistance processes, tools, and terminology. This series should create a foundation to understand updates to the circular training series that follow. The illustration on the left outlines the general topics for the sessions in this series. Now we will get into the heart of the training and provide an overview of federal financial assistance. I would like to introduce Alexis Fisher from our office.
Thank you, Trina. I'm so excited to speak with you all today about federal financial assistance. So, federal financial assistance is support from the federal government to accomplish a public good that is provided to a recipient or subrecipient in the form of a grant, a cooperative agreement, a non cash contribution or property donation, a direct appropriation, some sort of food commodity, or another item of value. FTA typically awards federal financial assistance through a grant or cooperative agreement. Both of these are legal instruments that create a relationship by transferring something of value to carry out a public purpose authorized by law. But the primary difference between a grant and a cooperative agreement is the level of governmental participation. And under a cooperative agreement, there is substantial government participation. Before continuing, let's make sure we understand the difference between a contract and federal assistance. Contractors typically provide the goods and services procured within their normal business operations to many different purchasers. For the purpose of federal financial assistance, their normal operations typically do not serve a public purpose, and the contract between a recipient or a subrecipient is to obtain specific goods and services for the recipient's own use. The level of governmental involvement in a contract would be dependent upon the terms of the individual award. However, grants and cooperative agreements transfer money or property to a recipient or subrecipient to serve a public purpose, and the actions are tied to a financial assistance program permitted under law. So they're much tighter in terms of what the environment would be that a grant recipient or a subrecipient would receive. Federal agencies use the framework created by internal, administrative, program, and statutory requirements to create a federal assistance program. These requirements feed into the rules, systems, and guidance of a federal financial assistance program. It is created on the structure upon which the individual projects are funded with financial assistance, as well as how these individual projects are created, monitored, and administered. If we look at this image, we can see that the internal and administrative requirements have a very strong executive branch tilt, meaning that the executive orders and the information from the Office of Management and Budget under 2 CFR 200, as well as the departmental and agency policies and regulations, all come from this executive branch. We're on the right-hand side, under the program requirements and the statutory requirements, we find a lot of laws that are given to us via Congress. We just wanted to point this out, that there has to be a marriage or a webbing of these two to create that framework, because Congress authorizes and provides funding for federal financial assistance, but it is ultimately administered through the federal government's executive offices, like the Department of Transportation. So this slide builds upon that framework and really tries to create an idea of what the federal assistance workflow looks like. Financial assistance programs require both authorizing and appropriation statutes. Typically, Congress grants authority for a federal agency to create a federal financial assistance program through an authorizing piece of legislation that provides the program's framework and constructs and basic outlines. And then Congress later provides funding for these programs through an appropriation statute. Agencies like FTA use the specific program instructions in the authorizing statute to create grant programs based on the authorization, government-wide legislation, and other requirements. FTA and other agencies announce that funds are available, review applications, and make final decisions for award. All of these actions just described are those green boxes on the workflow. Those are pre-award activities, activities that take place before FTA issues an award to an applicant that would then become a recipient when they countersign the award. The yellow box is when that step happens, when the application becomes the award. And the blue box that follows it on the last row is the post-award activities. What's kind of funny is that there's one box for post-award, and that's really where the majority of the work occurs. In that blue box, the recipient is carrying out the award's scope of work, and federal agencies are monitoring the awards to ensure compliance with requirements and that the actual public purpose of financial assistance is taking place on the ground. Following up on that, you see the gray boxes, and that's the closeout phase. After the award has completed its scope of work and the period of performance has ended, recipients are required to talk about and report on what they did in the completion of that scope of work, as well as liquidate their funding and submit all final reports and deliverables. FTA and other federal agencies during the closeout process take a step back and look at the program as a whole and try to figure out where we can make improvements moving forward if there is continuing legislation from Congress. The federal assistance workflow is mirrored by the award phases illustrated here. Because so many of our awards create an ongoing funding relationship, we often think of federal financial assistance more in terms of an ongoing sequence of award phases. Funding agencies like FTA must use prior recipient experience to inform risk for future awards, as well as to look at ways that they can improve their program, as we just mentioned. As you can see here, there's the green pre-award, the yellow award, the blue post-award, and the gray closeout. And they're all going around and around trying to create continuous improvement and mitigate risk across the different award phases. It's also good to point out that 2 CFR Part 200 mirrors the concept of award phases, and we'll discuss that in just a minute. TRAMS, our award management system in FTA, also has pre- and post-award workflows and actions that you'll learn about later in this series on summary of grants management. We just noted that funding relationship between the grantor, FTA, and the recipient. As part of this relationship, we have to understand that grants management requirements are significant in completing the goals of financial assistance. And one of the best ways we do this is through collaborating with our recipients. Together, FTA hopes to provide financial resources to assist our recipients in providing top-notch public transit across the nation. And we can only do this as we work together for the stewardship of federal funds. These are some resources for reference regarding financial assistance requirements and training. We encourage you to review these requirements as they are incorporated into your FTA awards through the certs and assurances or certifications and assurances and the master agreement. I will now pass the presentation baton, so to speak, to Trina to discuss 2 CFR 200, which we just mentioned.
Thank you, Alexis. We will review the shared federal financial assistance requirements and guidance included under 2 CFR Part 200. This set of requirements is commonly referred to as the Uniform Guidance or 2 CFR 200. 2 CFR Part 200 establishes uniform administrative requirements cost principles, and audit requirements for federal awards to non-federal entities. This includes standards for the Federal Awarding Agency, the FTA, and non-federal recipients such as states, transit agencies, local governmental organizations, IHE, also known as institutes of higher education, such as colleges and universities, and nonprofits. Uniform guidance is a government-wide framework for grants management, and it provides an authoritative set of rules and requirements for federal awards. It is the foundation on which federal agencies develop their policies for grants and cooperative agreements. The uniform guidance streamlined requirements to strengthen oversight of federal funds. Let's look at the following OMB circulars that are superseded and consolidated under 2 CFR Part 200, such as Circular A-89 includes information on federal domestic assistance program information. Circular A-133 is regarding audits of states, local governments, and nonprofit organizations, and specific sections of A-50 regarding federal audits resolution. Circulars A-102 and A-110 include requirements for awards to state and local governments and higher education, hospitals, and other nonprofit organizations, respectively, and circulars regarding the cost principles for educational institutions, which would be A-21, state, local, and tribal governments, A-87, and nonprofit organizations, A-122. 2 CFR Part 200 has 18 different sections, including 6 subparts and 12 appendices that each focus on a specific aspect of federal financial assistance award management. We will not walk through each section, but want to ensure that there are many requirements outlined in 2 CFR Part 200 and encourage recipients to review this information as its requirements impact many facets of administering federal awards. For example, there are requirements for internal controls included under Subpart D on post-award requirements that must be in place to ensure that items included under the Subpart E, the cost principles, are allowable, and then checked under Subpart F's single audit requirements. There are some parts of the definitions under Subpart A and the indirect cost information in a specific appendix that also impact what administrative and financial actions a recipient must take for costs to be properly categorized to be allowable. Subpart A identifies commonly used acronyms that are utilized throughout the uniform guidance and provides definitions for important terms in grants administration. Understanding and accurately applying the terms and definitions is critical in managing federal awards. The Uniform Administrative Requirements establish the requirements for financial management systems, procurement, reports and records, grant closeouts, and audits for recipients. These also explain the responsibilities of federal awarding agencies and pass-through entities in awarding, monitoring, closing out, and audits of grant awards. In general, the uniform administrative requirements are consistently applied to all entities receiving federal grant awards. 2 CFR Part 200 Subpart B contains general provisions that are applicable to all types of assistance awards and provide the framework for how the uniform guidance operates like an operating manual. Subpart C includes instructions and pre-award guidance for federal agencies for the announcement and application process. It includes standard application requirements and specific award conditions. Subpart D outlines various grants management requirements for post-award administration. These include administrative standards for financial and program management, property and procurement standards, financial and performance reports and monitoring, remedies for non-compliance, closeout, and continuing responsibilities, including records retention and collection of amounts due. The cost principles identify what costs may or may not be charged to a federal assistance award and how these costs should be classified. Costs charged to federal assistance awards need to be documented, allowable, necessary, reasonable, and allocable. The cost principles are important throughout the grants process. Recipients use the cost principles to formulate application budgets and to allocate charges to awards. Auditors use the cost principles when reviewing program expenditures. FTA staff understands the cost principles are essential to analyze application budget, respond to recipient questions regarding allowability and allocability of costs, review financial reports, and resolve problems which require detailed examination of expenditures such as audit resolution and follow-up. For contracts, the cost principles are included under the Federal Acquisition Regulation, FAR, Subpart 31.2, Contracts with Commercial Organizations, codified at 48 CFR 31.2, Appendix D. The audit requirements are included in 2 CFR Part 200, Subpart F, and provide governing audits direction of almost all grant recipient types and requirements for federal agencies and auditors. The audit requirements create the single audit that is a revision of the prior Circular A-133 and related oversight requirements. The single audit plays a significant role in 2 CFR's risk remediation efforts, seeking to capture audit findings in one audit, as well as streamlining and storing audits in one place, the audit clearinghouse. Additionally, the single audit liaison official for each agency is responsible for working with counterparts in other agencies to examine cross-cutting audit findings and through interagency coordination, develop solutions to reduce the number of findings. In addition to the independent auditor recipients hired to complete the single audit, the Government Accountability Office, GAO, and Agency Inspectors General Office may also audit recipients to ensure compliance with requirements. The 2 CFR Part 200 is a large set of requirements. Sometimes it seems overwhelming, but here are a few tips to help you. If there is a must use in the uniform guidance, then recipients are compelled to comply, but should statements are softer and encourage action or best practices. Check to make sure that you are reviewing the correct set of requirements for your organization in its role as a primary recipient or subrecipient. When using the cost principles, all items are not listed and specific financial assistance program requirements may apply. If something is not listed in the selected items of cost in subpart E, that does not mean that it is allowable or is not allowable. Review the item that is most closely related to the cost in question and read the entire citation and look for exceptions. And you can always reach out to your FTA contact for clarification. The creation of the requirements under 2 CFR Part 200 also included a regular review and update to the uniform guidance. Since 2014, there have been 2 updates in 2020 and in 2024. FTA's circulars, particularly 5010, the Award Management Requirements Circular, was updated to reflect these changes. The intent of the revisions is to keep requirements up to date and therefore improve the stewardship of federal funds, promote equitable access to programs and services, reduce administrative burden for federal agencies, applicants, and recipients, as well as facilitate streamlined and effective implementation and oversight of federal programs. As you may know, there were some significant changes in the 2024 revisions. These changes came into effect while FTA was updating its circulars. This is a quick list of items that has already been updated in the circulars, particularly the 5010-1F circular. And now I would use this time to plug our next series of videos regarding 5010. Be on the lookout for the Award Management Requirements series, in which we will discuss these changes in more detail. Here are some resources that can assist in understanding requirements. Next, we will look at some statutory or laws and their requirements, as well as some specific aspects of legislation that impact financial assistance awards. The requirements under 2 CFR Part 200 incorporate many legal requirements into one place. There are several laws that also impact federal financial assistance, such as the Federal Assistance Management and Improvement Act, Civil Rights Statutes, Build America, Buy America, Emergency Response and Recovery Acts, and case law. Now, looking at specific programs for federal financial assistance, there must be an authorizing and appropriation statute. The authorizing statute or law is how Congress gives a federal agency the ability or authority to provide financial assistance. But the actual money for the financial assistance is provided by the appropriation statute, where Congress allows for the program's federal funds to be expended or spent. Usually there is a one-to-one relationship where the grant program is authorized in one piece of legislation and funded in another piece of legislation. But there are times when the appropriation impacts the program requirements, or an authorizing statute may outline minimum funding requirements for future years. FTA and its financial assistance stakeholders have to be alert and ready for action when it's funding season. Authorizing statutes typically outline requirements for a financial assistance program to provide discretionary or formula awards. Discretionary awards are usually made through a competitive process with requirements outlined in a NOFO, which is a Notice of Funding Opportunity that outlines applicant requirements, evaluation criteria, and funding priorities. FTA awards competitive grants and cooperative agreements. Formula awards are made based on a calculated amount that is based on legislative parameters or requirements such as population. FTA makes formula awards under various programs. Discretionary requirements are typically stricter than formula rules because of the competitive requirement. Be sure to understand the flexibilities or restrictions on a specific award and funding program. Additionally, most formula awards are made to states or larger entities that provide subawards to complete the award's scope of work and comply with program requirements. The primary recipients of the award then pass through the program requirements to subrecipients through the subaward process. There are some specific pass-through requirements outlined in 2 CFR Part 200 that we would like to highlight. 1. There are some specific data elements required on all subawards to ensure compliance with federal requirements and subaward closeout information. Please see 200.331 for more information. 2. Primary recipients are required to monitor the activities of subrecipients to ensure compliance. This includes reviewing financial and programmatic reports, correcting deficiencies, and issuing management decisions for audit findings. And 3, primary recipients must conduct a risk assessment, provide training and technical assistance on program-related matters, performing reviews, and developing audit procedures. Let's get a little FTA specific to help illustrate authorizing and other legislation that impacts FTA awards. Federal transit laws codified in Title 49 U.S.C. Chapter 53, through which Congress established the legal authority to commence and continue FTA programs through authorizing legislation. This authority is provided in each reauthorization. Currently, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or bill, is the most recent authorization for surface transportation programs for fiscal year 2022 through fiscal year 2026. Sometimes you may hear bill or IIJA in reference to the current authorization. The two are basically the same. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law was enacted in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, that is the IIJA, and authorizes up to $108 billion for public transportation. It is the largest federal investment in public transportation in the nation's history. Now that we know what our current authorizing legislation is, what else has impacted FTA programs recently? First, the Consolidated Appropriations Act 2024 provided FTA with a full year spending authority that lasted through September 2024. We are currently on a continuing resolution, or CR, to fund programs until December 2024. Next, the National Defense Authorization Act fiscal year 2022 provided FTA with the authority to transfer real property acquired or improved with federal assistance, but no longer needed for the original authorized purpose, to a local governmental authority, nonprofit organization, or other third-party entity if certain statutory criteria are met. While that seems strange for a Department of Defense appropriation to give FTA direction, it is not unique. As previously mentioned, Congress keeps us alert and ready for action.
Trina, you are clearly the master of requirements. Thank you. Our next discussion will focus on the federal agency implementation of financial assistance programs. This will help us understand some of the many different resources and guidance that agencies use to make sure our grants management relationship is running full steam ahead. To clarify legislation, the application process, the programmatic framework, as well as administrative, financial, and oversight requirements, federal agencies use various methods to relay this information. FTA and other agencies use program guidelines, program regulations, Dear Colleague letters, and notices of funding opportunities, or NOFOs, to relay necessary information so recipients may remain in compliance with the requirements, legislation, and coordinate sound grants management practices. So our last slide gave big overviews of the various ways federal agencies can provide information to recipients regarding federal financial assistance. So let's get a little bit more specific to FTA here. Recipients have various documents, tools, and resources from FTA that guide their actions and that they should review in order to meet mandated documentation, reporting, and administrative procedures. FTA shares this information through its program guidance, regulations, Dear Colleague letters, and more. The bullets on this slide below provide various links to this information and guidance. Primarily, FTA shares its financial assistance and administrative information through its circulars. Recipients are obligated to maintain compliance with all circulars upon acceptance of any financial assistance from FTA. A great place to start is the Circular on Award Management, Circular 5010. This circular provides information and overviews of procurement, civil rights, asset management, planning, environmental, real property, and oversight requirements that may or may not have their own circulars or have other resources and guidance. Since our authorizing statute has changed in recent years, the circulars must also be updated to provide federal assistance information and program information that is up to date. Likewise, there also have been recent changes to 2 CFR 200 and other government-wide requirements. Just weeks ago, in September 2024, the revised circulars were finalized and published to reflect these changes, as well as incorporate some streamlining efforts to assist with consistency, clarification, and ease of use. This slide includes a list of all FTA circulars. FTA announces its proposed circular changes and finalized versions of the circulars through a Federal Register notice. These announcements are also broadcasted through Gov Delivery System emails. If you're interested in looking at a specific circular, we suggest starting with the topic column in the middle. That way you know which numbered circular is where you would have to look. FTA has a dedicated page on transit.gov just to house all of its circulars. With so many different circulars, regulations, requirements, laws, it can be difficult to determine what rule is most applicable. The order of precedence can help. The order of precedence is the hierarchy of documents and federal regulations. This is the order upon which it flows. So the Constitution's at the top, and it goes from there all the way down to the agreement. Ultimately, the U.S. Constitution governs all governmental actions, but we do not always think of it playing that big of a role in our day-to-day operations. But it really does, because it lays out how the laws operate within the United States. Underneath the Constitution are the various public laws, such as our enacting or authorizing legislation. From those requirements, we see the different United States codes that are developed, such as the debarment requirements and SAM.gov registrations, the titles within the Federal Code of Regulations, so the 2 CFRs that we might see, that's what the Code of Federal Regulations, the CFR part, which is the agency's adoption of various requirements, OMB's uniform guidance, the other circulars and other notices that FTA and other federal agencies use, and then finally the agreement and NOFO. Again, we have some resources to help you understand requirements. This is our final and shortest section of the presentation today. This segment will focus on award management responsibilities. This graphic shows the major responsibilities of recipients and funding or grantor agencies like FTA, as well as individual offices within the funding agency. Recipients should keep in mind their responsibility to administer their awards in compliance with all requirements established in the award throughout the award's life cycle. Funding agencies like FTA have obligations to both the federal government, including Congress, as well as their recipients. At FTA, as with most agencies, there are staff at headquarters and in the field. Here at FTA, headquarters staff primarily have broad program level or leadership level responsibilities in terms of program administration, whereas our staff in the metropolitan and regional offices do the majority of our day-to-day working relationship with the recipients. They may be focusing on planning, oversight, financial requirements, as well as helping to feed the information back up to headquarters that it needs to relay its important mission across the government. As noted previously, FTA forms a relationship with its recipients when providing financial assistance funding. Understanding our roles and responsibilities makes it easier to work together with our recipients and work together to complete our public purpose. Together, we can celebrate our successes and learn from our mistakes to help improve transportation across the country. This concludes our formal presentation on government-wide requirements. So, the ball's in your court for the next steps. Since this is only the first in our summary of grants management sessions, next steps for you could be to watch the remaining videos or maybe take some notes and send us an email to that shared email box at FTA Circular Update 2024, all one word, at dot.gov. Also included on this page are links to the various circulars that were recently published in September 2024. As part of our ongoing efforts and commitment to serving the public, FTA hopes to improve America's communities through public transportation. We share a vision of fostering a better quality of life for all, built on public transportation excellence through a commitment to service, integrity, innovation, sustainability, and equity. Thank you again for watching. We hope you will view the other videos within this series, as well as all the videos related to this Circular 2024 update and release.